Have you ever wanted to learn 3D but don't know where to start? Well, if that's you, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll show you how to install Blender, the amazing free 3D software, and get started with it. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. Okay, so first of all we need to download the program. So you can open up your browser of choice and just search for Blender download. And then you want to go to blender.org. Once you're there, you can click download Blender, and then once it's downloaded you can follow the installation setup and you should be good. Okay, so once you have downloaded and installed Blender, on Mac you can press Command Space and then you can just type in Blender. Or on Windows, you can press the Windows key and then type in Blender. Then we can just click open, and now you can see that Blender has been opened. So the first thing you'll see is the splash screen displaying the version and your recent files. We don't really need to worry about this at the moment. We can just hover over any of this gray area, then we can just click and you can see it disappears. Okay, so you can see we have a cube here and some weird lines. So what this is called is the 3D view. So first of all, you probably want to have a look around your scene. So if you're using a mouse, you can press and hold the middle mouse button. If you don't know what the middle mouse button is, it's the scroll wheel. And yes, it is a button, so you can hold down that and then slide your mouse around and you can see that we're panning around the scene. If you're using a trackpad, you can just use 2 fingers and that does the same thing. Then to zoom in and out, you can use the scroll wheel or hold down Control and 2 fingers. And then to move, you can hold down Shift and middle mouse button or Shift and 2 fingers on the trackpad. So those are the very basic shortcuts to navigate your way around the 3D view. Okay, so you can see our cube has an orange line around it. So let's just click somewhere over here, not on the cube. You can see now that the orange line has gone away. So now if we click on the cube again, you can see the orange line comes back. So this orange outline means the object is selected. So we can deselect and reselect it by clicking on it. And some of you probably noticed that up here, when I select it, this is changing. You can see the background is turning blue when I select it. So over here is actually the outliner. It shows you all the objects in your scene and which ones are selected. So you can see the cube has a blue line on it. That means it's selected. You can see we also have a camera and a light. So we can actually just click on the light and you can see the light is this circle on the stick and the camera is this object over here. So let's just select our cube again. And by now you're probably wondering, how do we move it around? So to move it around, let's just go over to this toolbar over here. You can see we have this button here and it has 4 arrows. So I'm just going to click on that. Now if we head back over to our cube, you can see we have 3 arrows sticking out of it. So let's just click one of those and drag it. So you can see it's moving up. Now if we click the green one, you can see it's moving left to right. If we grab the red one, it's moving forward and backwards. So the blue one is the Z axis, the green is the Y axis, and the red one is the X axis. And you can see we actually have this white circle in the middle. If we click inside that, you can see we can move this around freely without it being constrained to any axis. So now let's go back to the toolbar and we'll go to the next one down from the move tool. We can just click that and now we have enabled the rotation tool. So you can see again we have 3 different colors. We have the red, the green and the blue. So let's just click and drag one of those. You can see the blue rotates it around the Z axis, the green rotates it around the Y axis and the red rotates it around the X axis. And then if we click the white one, it will rotate the object depending on our view. So now let's go back to the toolbar and go to the next one, which is the scale tool. So I'll click that and now you can see we have these lines that kind of look like the move tool, but instead of having an arrow on the end, they have a little cube. So let's click and drag the blue one. It scales it along the Z axis. We can do that with the Y and the X axis, and we can scale it on all axes with the white one. Okay, so those are the basic tools to move, scale and rotate your objects. Now let's delete this cube. Well, it was a cube. So let's bring our mouse up over here to this object button. Let's click on that and then go all the way down to the second last one and that says delete. We can click that and you can see our object disappears from our 3D view and the outliner. We can do the same with the light and the camera. Now we have nothing in our scene. Now let's add an object. So if we go back up to these buttons here, you can see on the left of the object button we have an add button. So let's click that, and then we want to go to the first option, which is mesh, and you can see we have all these different 3D objects. We have a plane, a cube, a circle, a UV sphere, an icosphere, a cylinder, a cone, a torus, a grid, and a monkey. So let's just start by re-adding the cube. And I'm just going to go back to the move mode. So there we go, we have a cube. Let's delete the cube and add, how about a cylinder? Now we have a cylinder. And let's try deleting that again. And one more time, let's add a cone. There we go, we have a cone. So instead of going up to object and all the way down to delete, what we can do is we can press the X button on our keyboard. And then it says delete selected objects, and then we can click delete. So that's a fast way of deleting an object, and the faster way of adding an object is pressing Shift A. And you can see the exact same menu pops up. So if we click the add button, you can see the same menu pops up. If we press Shift A, the same menu pops up as well. So now we can go back to mesh and add whatever we want. So we know how to move the objects, scale the objects, rotate the objects, add objects, and delete objects. But what if we want to move just this point of the object? We can actually do this. We can go up to these buttons again, and you can see there's this button that says object mode. So at the moment we're in the object mode. So if we click that, you can see we have a whole bunch of different modes. You don't really need to worry about these ones, but what we're looking for is edit mode. So if we click that, you can see everything turns orange, and we have these dots on the edges of our object. So first things first, these dots are called vertices. So like in object mode, we can just click one of these and you can see it selects it. We can do that with any of these, and you can see it does select it. And you can see over in the toolbar, we do have our same move, rotate, and scale options, but we also have a bunch more. You don't really need to worry about these for the moment, so I'll just go up and click the move. Now with one of those vertices selected, we can just move it round. Now you can see it's actually moving our mesh and changing our mesh. So we can basically create whole new shapes. So I'm just going to go back up to these buttons up here, and just across from the mode changer, you can see we have these three buttons. At the moment you see we have this one selected, and it's a cube with a little square on it. That button is vertice select mode. So let's try selecting the next button. So you can see once we do that, all the vertices disappear. So we can just swap between them, and you can see all the vertices disappear. So this is edge select mode. So now we can select any edge, and you can see it selects it, and again we can move that edge. We can also do the same with faces. So this is called a face. We can select that, and then you see it moves that whole face. Okay, so that's the very basics of edit mode. Let's just go back to object mode. Now I want to delete this, and remember the shortcut is X, so we can click X and then click delete. So I'm going to press Shift A again and add a UV sphere. So let's talk about adding color. To add color in Blender, you first need to add a material to your object. Let's go over to the side panel here. At the moment you can see we have this orange box selected, but let's go all the way down to the bottom to this little red sphere. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to go up to this new button and click new. So when we click that plus button, it adds a new material, and you can see this material is called material 0.001. So I'm just going to click on this white box here, and then you can see a color wheel pops up. We can change this around, and you can see it is changing down here, but our object isn't changing color. So I'm just going to leave this as a green color for the moment. So to view our material, we have to go up here to this bar. At the moment, you can see we're on this white circle. We don't really need to worry about that for the moment. I'm just going to go over to the next one and click that. So now you can see that our color is showing up. But one problem we have is that it looks like it has a bunch of little squares. It kind of looks pixelated. So one thing to keep in mind is everything in Blender is made out of vertices, edges, and faces. So if we go back to edit mode and we're still in face select mode, you can see all of these squares is a face. So now let's go back out to object mode, and we want to make this nice and smooth. So we can go up to the object button again, go down to round about the middle, and you can see we have this shade smooth button. So let's just click that, and you can see now it looks a lot smoother. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about materials. What if you want to make your object shiny? So we can go back over to the material section over here, and the option down from the base color is called metallic. And you can see it's set to 0.000. If we click and drag this, and you can see that value is actually going up. Now you can see it kind of looks more shiny. Okay, so the option down from metallic is roughness. So if we click and drag this and turn it down, you can see it becomes less rough and more shiny. And if we drag it up, you can see it becomes more rough. I'll leave it around about 0.5. Okay, so let's add another object. Remember the shortcut, Shift A. I'm going to add a cube, move it over, go over and add a new material. I'll make this one red, turn the metallic up and the roughness down. Let's add one more object. Press Shift A again. Let's add a cone, move this over, add a new material. We can make this one blue. And for this one, I don't want to make it metallic, so I'm just going to leave that be. So now let's talk about rendering. So in Blender, rendering is basically exporting what you have as an image. But to render an image, we need to have a camera. So I'm going to press Shift A, and then I'm not going to go into mesh this time. I'm going to go down to the camera button. Then we can click that, and you can see we have a camera. It's kind of inside our sphere though. So I'm just going to move this back and move it up to somewhere like this. You can see it's looking at these objects. We can actually jump into the camera and see what it sees. So if we go over here to this little camera button, we can click that, and you can see it takes us inside the camera. Okay, so let's go back up to this bar up here, and let's go over one more to this sphere. Now if we click that, you can see everything kind of looks dull and flat. So this section over here is called render preview. It's basically showing what it will look like in the final render. It looks pretty dark and flat. So we can actually add a light. So we're going to press Shift A, go to light. Let's just add a area light. I'm going to move it up. I want to make this a bit brighter, so we can right click on our mouse or two finger tap on our trackpad and click adjust the light power. Now we can use our mouse and slide it back and forward and make it brighter. And now I'm just going to go back out of camera view by clicking the camera button. You can see our light is pretty small. I want it to be a bit bigger, so let's go to the scale button over here and scale it along the X and the Y. Something like this. Let's go back into camera view. And now the question is, how do we export this as an image or render it? So that's actually pretty simple. All we have to do is go up to render, up at the very top, and then click render image. That will open a new window, and you can see we have our objects, and it looks exactly the same as the camera view. Now we can actually save this image if we want by going up to image and save. Now you can save this to your desktop if you want, and call it something if you want. I'll just call it objects. Then we can go down and click save as image. Now if we minimize Blender and go to our desktop, you can see we have our image. Okay, so that's basically all I have for this tutorial. Hopefully you'll learn something and understand how Blender works a little bit more. I have a few more beginner friendly tutorials on my channel. You can go check those out if you want. And if this was helpful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Yeah, so I'll see you in the next one.